Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
Here as for the second time in like 4 hours, maybe. Tony, is it Michigan week again? Why are we doing multiple shows today?
Well, Tom, we are doing multiple shows today because there has been a couple of announcements of transfer portaling, and fortunately, the announcements came close enough together that we didn't have to do two separate emergency shows, which I'm guessing at some point in the next month we will. But for this show, we're going to combine emergencies as fourth year junior Cameron Martinez has announced that he will be entering the transfer portal, and fourth year graduate junior Victor Cutler, offensive lineman, will be entering the portal as well. And Tom, let's first start off with Cam Martinez, who played in the first three games this year, missed some time, I think, with injury, then played another game, and at that point, basically shut things down.
Yeah, we had heard that they were thinking about, like shutting him down for the season, essentially to allow him to take a red shirt. I don't believe he traveled to Michigan. I believe he was not on the travel roster for the Michigan game. So this was not a huge surprise. He's someone who, he's the one with the famous 10 minutes, all touchdowns high school highlight video. He was a quarterback for Muskegon High School in Michigan, a basically run-based offense, and was just absolutely electric with the football in his hand, and came to Ohio State to play defense, and it just never quite worked out. He never really found a home on defense for the Buckeyes. He was sort of in the safety room. He played nickel some last year, but never really got to the point where he was the best option anywhere. And he's someone who I am super intrigued to see where he ends up next, because he's someone who, he had been talking about, he had been looking at, I think, Northwestern at one point during his recruiting process. And he felt like someone who, like, he could be a real pain in the butt Northwestern sort of slot back or wildcat quarterback kind of guy. I don't know where he might be headed. He could be a heck of an offensive player somewhere. He could be a heck of a defensive player somewhere. It just felt like it wasn't going to happen at Ohio State.
No, and you saw that basically this season, where even when he played, he did not play well, was targeted a few times when he got into games and targeted successfully. When he came to Ohio State, I think I remember Ryan Day talking about on signing day that there's a possibility they could look at him on offense as well. And clearly they didn't, but his path to Ohio State, very similar to like Jalen Marshall, who was an option quarterback at Middletown, came to Ohio State to play offense. I remember Marshall was listed as a 5-star running back. I think Cam Martinez was listed as an athlete. You get him here and you kind of have an idea of what they're going to be. Jalen Marshall was an H-back. I thought when we talked in signing day about that possibility of Cam Martinez playing offense, I think when he views his future after college, is he looking at the professional ranks, and does he see that being offense or defense for him? I think whatever he views himself as in the future is what he views himself as now for his next choice. And I wouldn't mind seeing him on offense again, because yeah, he was electric as a quarterback at Muskegon, an option guy, and was certainly the 10 minute video that's of just touchdowns. When you have that, that's pretty impressive. He started twice in 2021, to give you an idea of, like, he was a legitimate piece of the defense in 2021, was the dime guy last year. And really, with the nickel situation that Ohio State had this year with the depth, there just really was no room for him. He was a dime guy a couple of times, and things didn't work out without him, Tom. I don't know that the question is, what do they do without him? I think the question still is, what do they do at nickel overall next year? And that's something we're going to talk about for months on end, at least until we know what Jordan Hancock is doing. Once we figure that out, then I think we'll know better on what this could look like. There's a chance it looks very similar to this year, although the Sonny Styles situation is going to be one that they need to figure out.
Yeah, they need to figure out what they're going to do with Sonny Styles. You need to figure out how you're replacing Josh Proctor, because I'm pretty sure he can't possibly have another year of eligibility get left. It's a little tricky with the COVID years and all that kind of stuff, and he had the broken leg in 2021, so theoretically maybe that could have been a medical year, and then you have the COVID year, and maybe he took a red shirt in there somewhere. I mean, if you told me 7th-year Josh Proctor was back next year, I guess I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I feel like it can't possibly happen. But either way, is Lathan Ransom back next year? You've got Malik Hartford, you've got Kai Stokes, you've got other guys who have been in the mix there at the safety positions. And, where does Denzel Burke leave early? And if he does Jordan Hancock leave early? And if Jordan Hancock doesn't leave early, does he kick outside or does he stay in the slot? There's a lot of moving pieces. This is all kind of stuff that's going to be, intriguing stuff to look at in the spring. And if they end up in, the Orange Bowl or something like that, and you have a bunch of opt-outs, it might be intriguing stuff to look at in terms of how do they handle it in the Orange Bowl. Because that's going to be, if they are in the Orange Bowl, that does become kind of, the beta test version of spring football for Ohio State. You're going to get to see it's the sort of the start of the 2024 football season in 2023. So, but yeah, we'll get the answers to a lot of that stuff coming up potentially soon, but we'll see how the bowl situation plays out.
Yeah, a couple of other slot guys in there. Ryan Turner, we'll see what happens with him. Both Bryce West has talked about he will be an outside and inside guy next year. Miles Lockhart being recruited as a slot guy as well. And we'll see if Ohio State can keep him away from the oncoming hot home school of Arizona in that battle. But so that's Cam Martinez. Let's talk about Victor Cutler, who Ohio State went to the portal for last winter after Luke Whippler declared and basically left Ohio State in a lurch. And you're looking around and you're like, oh, we don't have a center. And then eventually it comes to the point of, well, there's this left tackle at Louisiana Monroe. And when that happened, we were like, boy, if we didn't know there were an issue at center without Luke Whippler, we certainly got a big hint when they went and got a left tackle from Louisiana Monroe to play center. And of course, he played in 5 games this past season. And really, Tom, do you see a path for playing time for him next year?
No, because what was the biggest question mark on the field, on the offensive line for Ohio State? First, what was the biggest question mark on the field for Ohio State? It was probably the offensive line for a big chunk of the year. What was the biggest question mark on the offensive line? It was center. And I think I saw he played 21 snaps or something like that all season long. It just, it wasn't. They brought him in because you really didn't know what you had there at center, and it ended up being Carson Hinsman. Carson Hinsman was kind of okay for stretches, and Carson Hinsman's only going to get better. He was a redshirt freshman this year, probably got thrown in there a year before he was really ready, because Luke Whippler leaving didn't just catch the Ohio State fan base off guard. It caught the Ohio State coaching staff off guard too. And I think if Luke Whippler had that to do over again, he might make a different choice, and that would probably work out well for Ohio State as well as for Luke Whippler. But when he made the decision that he made, then it was kind of like, oh boy, well, we don't have an answer for that just yet. And so they just kind of went, let's try this. And Louisiana Monroe to Ohio State is about the biggest jump you could possibly make while still remaining in FBS in terms of the gap between those two schools. Louisiana Monroe is kind of the bottom of the Sun Belt, one of the less affluent programs in all of FBS, and the jump to Ohio State, that's a pretty significant jump. And I think you're maybe seeing a little bit, this might have been a little bit of the early years of the portal. It's been going for a while, but it's obviously gotten much bigger. And you still don't quite know. You don't have like the total equivalency of, someone who plays at this level in the Sun Belt is the equivalent of this level in the Big Ten. You're still sort of figuring some of that stuff out. Sometimes those guys make that jump from the lower leagues up to the higher leagues. Josh Simmons went from San Diego State, which, San Diego State's a decent Mountain West program, and that's a better team and a better conference. But he went from a non-power conference team to, like, by the end of the year, he was a pretty decent left tackle for Ohio State. That one ended up working out fine. Vic Cutler, that was probably too much of a jump, and you're also switching positions. I think programs are sort of learning right now in terms of what does Big Ten talent look like at the low-level Sun Belt level, and you're sort of figuring some of that stuff out on the fly, because you have, like, I'm thinking of, like, Dante Cephas, who was a superstar at Kent State, who then went to Penn State and was kind of like just okay. But then you had Sam Wiglusz, who was a walk-on at Ohio State, who basically never played, who's now been first-team All-MAC a couple of years in a row as a wideout for Ohio University. So, there's a pretty big gap there, and you don't have this, that a wide amount of historical data to compare. That's, you can go, okay, jumping from this league to this league. Baseball, they have stats where it's like major league equivalency. If you're in AA, you have a decent idea that a guy who's hitting fill in the blank in AA would hit about this in the majors. You don't have the years of shuttling guys back and forth in college football. I think you're sort of starting to, you're sort of figuring some of that stuff out yet. And that was probably a little bit too big of a jump for Vic Cutler. But again, he was a very productive player for Louisiana Monroe. If he's going somewhere, if he goes to, I don't know, hypothetically, Illinois, or, even, a high non-power 5 team, could very well be a very productive starter for them next year. It just didn't work out at Ohio State.
Yeah, and he has to get on the field to be able to do what he wants to do. If you want to make a career of it, you've got to get on the field. So you've got to go somewhere where you can get on the field. I remember talking to him, I think maybe in fall camp or maybe late spring, where he said the jump from Ohio State, it was vast for a number of reasons. One of them was he just didn't understand all of the everything that he had available to him at Ohio State to help him get better in terms of just the staff, the people who will go get you things. Do you need another meal? We can set you up with that. We can get this for you. Because like you said, when you come from Louisiana Monroe, it's not quite DIY there, but it's pretty close in terms of development, and you've got to do stuff on your own in terms of just, you almost don't have to do anything. You're catered to at Ohio State. Obviously, you've got to put in the work, but you're not really left wanting for much. And you come here, and then that's an adjustment. But he'll go somewhere looking for more time, and Ohio State will attack the portal harder on the offensive line than they did a year ago. I believe that, especially they were very fortunate to get Josh Simmons after spring ball, and they can't wait until after spring ball. You can go and attack it again in spring, but you also have to attack it now right away. And it looks like they probably will do that, looking at a couple of targets like Notre Dame center Zeke Corral and Carter Smith, Indiana left tackle, who both are from Ohio and both would, I think, be solid additions. And right now in the portal, Ohio State used to look for guys that could start. We're going to go get starters. They've changed that. Last year, a year ago, we saw they brought in 7 or 8 guys, and 3 of them ended up starting, 2 or 3 ended up starting, including John Ferlman, the long snapper, Josh Simmons in there. So really, you can't be picky. You got to be a little picky, but you can't be so picky. You've got to have guys that can compete. Nothing else, just raise the level of talent in the room, Tom.
Well, you're going to have guys who have the opportunity to start at some point. That doesn't necessarily need to be right now. Carter Smith is someone who he might come in and be a starter in 2024. He's a redshirt freshman. He was a redshirt freshman this past season, so he could have multiple seasons at Ohio State. He could sit for a year and then play 2 seasons at Ohio State and, still have an opportunity to make an impact there. You just need someone who can help bolster the depth. And, offensive line this year, they talked pretty openly about the fact that they were not real comfortable with anyone outside of the starting 5. And there were times that I don't think they were completely comfortable with the starting 5 either. So if you can get spots, even if you're just getting spots 6 and 7 and 8 better this year, that would make a big difference for this team, because you're looking at potentially you can shuffle guys around. If you find a guy who might be a great right tackle, great. You can kick Josh Fryer inside to right guard, and that might improve you in 2 spots. Or, you find someone else who can play guard, and then you slide someone into center, or, whatever it is. You just need to have more options because they were very thin. The top line talent was not what it has been at times in the past. And the second line of talent was definitely not what it has been in the past. And then you get real thin. And then if someone gets hurt, they were pretty fortunate with injuries this year along the offensive line. But, if someone gets hurt, then it becomes a real problem. So, this is an opportunity for them to, it's good for the guys who have a chance, the Carter Smiths, for example, to have a chance to potentially move up to a bigger program. And, he is not signed with Ohio State yet. So this is all still, we're sort of speculating, but he's someone they're pursuing. And, for someone who like Vic Cutler, you have an opportunity to go pursue a starting job somewhere else if it wasn't going to work out for you as a starter at Ohio State. So, ultimately this is the freedom of movement that is ultimately a good thing for, players moving in each direction.
Yeah, and we'll wrap up. And we've talked about the freedom of movement in the past, that once this transfer portal thing came and the players had the power, it also gave power to schools to kick kids out, basically. Like there's no longer this, how dare you push somebody out, because the movement, you kind of get lost in terms of who actually gets booted and who leaves of their own accord. And I was talking with a personnel person at another school, and they're like, people don't realize how much of the time schools are like, yeah, you might just want to go. You should probably go find yourself somewhere else to be. And the players have been empowered, but also now with that empowerment comes the reality of the situation. Like if you can leave freely, then we can also push you out freely, bring people in and say, you know what? You no longer have your scholarship. You can stay, but you're not going to play. Like there are ways around this.
Sure. And that's always, we've talked about, the conversation or the spring awakening happening in the past. And it's a little bit of it, that conversation's a little different when now you don't have to sit out a year. Because before it was really a crappy thing to do, to sort of boot someone out the door, when that meant they were going to have to sit a year under the NCAA's old rules, which is, this is one of these things that you say now, and it's like, how insane does that sound? Oh yeah, if I want to transfer schools, I had to sit out a year and then I could play. That's not that far in the past that was the rule. So, now that you can slide, you can move to a different school, you can move up, you can move down. It's, I'm sure there's concerns about credits transferring and that kind of stuff, and you're uprooting your life, and it's not great if you're doing it, not at all of your own volition, but it's certainly better than it used to be from everyone's perspective.
There's the rule about grad transferring that you can go, you can leave anytime you want, but the school you're going to, remember when you have to have a program that is not at your current school. Like you have to go be a graduate studies in art history, and you can only go to a school, like your school can't have that. You have to go somewhere where it's a study thing, where you're going to advance your career in terms of studies at a school, and you're going to that school because the school you're currently at does not have what you want as a graduate. And I thought that was kind of funny. And then you just go, I'm going to go take graduate courses you could literally do basket weaving at that point, because it does not matter. You're just there for a semester. And so why even, I think JT Barrett as a graduate never showed up on campus. He's just, I've got one class, what are we doing here? I'm already a graduate. I'm not, so I think all of that is, I don't know if that's still happening, if not that it ever stopped anybody. Like, oh, I wish I could have gone to this school, but I couldn't find a graduate program that worked for me. No, I don't think that was ever an issue. So before we go, please like this video. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe if you have not. Hit the bell to be notified when we drop videos like this. And there are going to be a bunch of videos like this one because we are in portal season. I thought maybe we could get through the bowl game, but no, it's happening now. So we'll be here for all of it. So go ahead and hit that bell to be notified. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and we will talk to you guys later.